podcast that goes out on Apple, but it is broadcast on the live stream. So,
sounds good.
All right. So don't say anything too nasty about people,
Fair enough. Yeah.
Unless you want to.
Only got about 30 seconds.
Okay, great. Did I get it all, Ron?
Yeah. What was that line by Dorothy Parker?
A little better.
If you don't have anything nice to say, come sit next to me.
Yeah. All right. And Greg's going to be live posting the show. So if your cell phone is near and you have notifications on, it's going to be buzzing a lot. So you may want to.
I went to airplane mode just for y'all.
Perfect. We got a pro here.
I'll be in the background. Have a great show.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Greg.
All right, ready for your counting?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right, have a great show. Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, have a great show starting in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to the Soul of Enterprise, Business in the Transformation Economy, sponsored by Woodard, building your ideal practice with coaching, education, community, and resources. I'm Ed Kless with my friend and co-host Ron Baker, and folks, on today's show, we have our interview with Jackie Meyer. Hey, Ron, how's it going?
Great, Ed. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation. Jackie and, the two of us have had many conversations, and I'm sure this is going to be a fun part of that conversation. Let me just read her in so we can get started on our conversation. Jackie Meyer is a distinguished figure in the accounting profession, celebrated for her innovative contributions and leadership. As the founder of TaxPlanIQ, she has revolutionized tax advisory services with a platform that streamlines tax planning and implementation. Jackie also hosts the Concierge CPA podcast, where she shares insights and best practices for accounting professionals. Her dedication to the profession has earned her recognition as a 40 under 40 honoree since 2018. Beyond her professional achievements, she is committed to promoting better health, wealth, and relationships within the accounting community. Welcome to the Soul of Enterprise, Jackie Meyer.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Finally, I've known y'all too for a while and really look up to both of you, and you've been great mentors to me. So I appreciate it.
That is awfully nice of you. But we have been on a tear of having people that we said we should have had you on a long time ago, including Paul Dunn, by the way. So
yeah, he's amazing.
So it's time for us to rectify some of those things. Anyway, Jackie, I wanted just to introduce our audience to you, and let's just start from your journey. You began and were running a boutique CPA firm, and then launched TaxPlanIQ. Talk about that transformation and why more about why it happened than anything.
Sure. Yeah. So I was running a pretty traditional CPA firm practice. I mean, we were remote. I guess I'd call us modern since 2010. I was a natural born workaholic. And so when I started having kids, 2013, 2016, it all went kind of downhill because I couldn't work in the middle of the night anymore, or all the nights and weekends. And so I had to kind of reevaluate my life because it was causing a lot of health problems for me, postpartum and chronic fatigue and whatnot. And I also was missing out on everything with my kids. So I hired a business coach, which was one of the best decisions of my life. And he was like, who do you love working with and why? And it was high net wealth executives in my local area. I live in South Lake, Texas. I'm currently in Vegas, wrapping up Engaged. So my voice is hoarse. My head is, half cloudy there, but it's all good. And so we redefined my firm to lead with tax advisory, which is something I had a passion for. And along those lines, I came up with a pricing methodology called the ROI Method, and it was a hit. So the firm took off. We quadrupled revenue. I got down to 56 clients, and then COVID hit, and I was kind of bored, honestly. Like, we were meant for COVID because we were already all paperless and everything. And I went to a vendor of mine And I said, hey, I have this vision of pulling all of the information and strategies and whatnot that I've learned over the years that have made my firm such a success into a SaaS product. Do you want to create this for me? I'll give you 20% of sales. I'm a female. I don't get all the venture capital. So I had to, wheel and deal a little bit. And they said yes. So the rest is history. After like 1 year, the SaaS product was worth more than my CPA firm of 12 years. And I decided to sell the firm and just double down on working with other accountants because I found that that's really where my passion and purpose aligned.
And which is a great story. And you also were a member of the accelerator program with AI CPA, which I know you're out at Engage. So talk a little bit about that exposure as well.
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, anytime that we can't say they partnered with us, or there's very words that we cannot say with AICPA, but
right.
We were part of the cohort in 2023. I was able to participate in like the New York Leadership Summit, which was amazing at the AICPA, and then speak that year. And it really just rallied the troops around what we're trying to do. And then since then, we've just been growing strong. We're at about 500 firms on the platform. This week, we live released the ROI method of value pricing, which is embedded in TaxPlanIQ, obviously, but it's a separate methodology that anyone can do. You both have, been in discussions with me around it to help me kind of figure out how to best present it to people. But it's really just a tangible calculator for people to use to value price. And it's going out live this week to all of AICPA members, 695,000, I believe. So that is a huge step in the right direction for the profession.
So what has been your experience with regard to pushback on this? Ron and I have been doing this a long time as well, and wonder what you see as the current pitfalls. Why are people still resisting the value pricing movement and even subscription pricing, all of those things? Because it's still not ubiquitous, right? We still haven't made all the folks convert over. So what's the pushback still?
Well, I think the pushback over the last couple of decades has been accountants want math. They want a true calculator, right? That's going to give them a number. And so, I mean, that's essentially what I created. And I know Ron and I have a little bit of a fundamental difference around the tangible benefits of value pricing, which we can talk about. But I think that's held a lot of people back. I think that people just automatically assume that you're doing something wrong by coming up with a new methodology or whatnot. And that's where I think the AICPA and this week and moving forward over the next year, I know that they're really honing in on tax advisory services, TAS, which is, where I live and where I think everyone should live in the accounting profession. And so I think those are going to be big pushes and big changes for people that have just been super resistant for no real good reason.
Because you even see it a little bit in, I know one of the big platforms that you have is your accounting firm influencer Facebook group, which is over 6,000 members, something like that now.
Yeah, we have about 8,000. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm a participant in that, and we still see pushback even in that group, right? Among people who are supposed to be. So to explain your sigh is really what I want to know.
Explain my side of the story,
your sigh. Why did you sigh when I was
sigh? Oh, because that group is just like it's like the bane of my existence because I created it organically as I spoke. I wanted the profession to move forward, but there's so many resistors still. And sometimes, honestly, I feel like they don't want to hear the thought leadership. They don't want to hear moving the profession forward. Some people just want to complain, and there's a time and place for that, but I'm a problem solver. And so I'm like, we know we have so many resources out there now. Let's support one another. Let's keep moving forward. Let's not just stay stuck in the past,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting that how often the conversation comes back to that. But maybe, with agentic AI, we're just going to be able to create a bot that's going to deal with all the naysayers and just,
There you go. Yeah. Well, there is an app that trolls people now. So, we'll just get the app to start trolling them.
Trolling them. So I want to talk a little bit about your personal transition. You said that this really took off for you, but what did that mean for your family life? I mean, one of the things that Ron and I are interested, especially especially, and you mentioned it in your bio, healthier, wealthier, wiser. What has it meant for you personally to make this transition?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I think it kind of just saved my life. Like my brain was so foggy that I could barely function. I remember I went to lunch when my daughter was 1 year old with my husband, and I was talking so slow. He's like, "Are you okay? What is happening to you?" I was like, "I can barely process right now." And I even warned him, I was like, "I don't know if having a second child is going to allow me to stay in this profession. I don't know if I can keep up, you know?" And there's this facade that you have to be this perfect CPA and firm owner and stuff like that. And it was just really hard to be my authentic self. So yeah, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
what else about it?
No, but I want to know, like, what helped you make that transformation? I mean, that's what Ron and I are talking more about, these transformations, and your story is such a, and I appreciate you sharing the personal insight here, because I think that's what people need to hear now, the more personal stories. So that's what I want. Yeah.
So I think about this a lot. I've coached several hundred accountants now, and I had someone text me this last week, and they're like, "I'm stuck. I'm getting burnout again, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Listen, this is a choice. I know you don't want to hear it, but burnout is a choice. You have to choose that you are not going to allow everyone step all over you. You're going to choose that you're not going to give your, entire heart and soul, right, off to everybody around you, your clients, your family, etc. You have to set boundaries." And people just can't seem to do that. And that's where they tend to get burnout. So I set a ton of boundaries. I did client onboarding guidelines, which at the time, not a lot of firms were doing, just to say, here's what you need to do for us, and here's what we do for you, right? And I just became a lot more transparent with clients about, look, like, this is how we're going to operate. You can either stay in our world or not. And that's really hard for a lot of accountants. But once you do it, I've never heard anyone say that they regretted it. Your value proposition drastically increases, your hours goes down, right? Because advisory is about knowledge, not about time, obviously. And so I was able to go from like 60-hour work weeks down to 4-hour work weeks, like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week book, which is something I read in college and was like, oh my gosh, I want to be like that someday. And so, yeah, and it all just came down to like daily choices of where I'm going to put my intent. And that revolved around making sure I got my family time in and doing the highest value services that I could in my firm.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Ron, I hope, or if not, I'll come back to it in the third segment, talk to you about something that we've been working with, the concept of moral injury, that I think might help you in replacing this burnout conversation. That it's actually not burnout, but I would really appreciate getting your insight. But we'll leave that for another segment, because we're coming up against our break. Want to remind our listeners that they can get a hold of Ron or me by sending an email to asktsoe@thresholdnow.com. The website is The Soul of Enterprise, where you can see show notes as well as previews to upcoming shows. You can rate this podcast by going out to ratethispodcast.com/TSOE, our Patreon channel, patreon.com/TSOE, where you can hear the show commercial free, as well as get our bonus episodes. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
All clear. Let me know when you're ready for your accounting back in.
All right. Good stuff, Jackie. Thanks for the opening.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you about pricing, Jackie. Don't worry about it.
No, that's a debate. Come on. We moved on from that. Now we're all on the same page, and we're all just going to go for it, right? I saw you had Mark Kozier. How do you say his last name? Kozier?
Koziel.
Yeah.
Koziel. Yeah.
I've already emailed him a couple times, because he was like, ask me anything. And I've, expressed way too many concerns about everything in the profession that needs to change. But he seems receptive. So it is exciting. I think it's a good movement forward. What do y'all think?
Oh, Mark, we've known Mark for 22 years.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
When I met him first time in Buffalo, he invited me to a young CPA conference, and he took me to Buffalo, where he's from, and the famous Hot Wings place in Buffalo. I forget the name, but I just looked at him. I said, Mark, someday you're going to be the president of the AICPA.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
So, and
yeah.
so
He's great,
Yeah.
and he was a VeraSage fellow when he was able to. When he first was working for AICPA, they asked him that he couldn't be listed anymore. But yeah, he was part of VeraSage for 10 years before he took that job at AICPA. Ron,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
Very cool.
So he came in strong with the kickoff keynote, pretty clear about like what the future looks like and whatnot. And I think there's just a lot of hope, which was great.
Yeah, no, he's got no time for the billable hour, the partnership model, or the timesheet. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, Jordan, we're ready.
All right, coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Jackie Meyer. And Jackie, I promised not to ask you about pricing. So let me ask you about this, the pipeline. Why do we have a pipeline problem in this profession? What's your take?
Because the work people assume that we do sucks, right? It's like the Office show. We're just like robots, right? And that's not at all what we do. There's so many really cool things that we do, especially around advisory. I think that we need more direction, which I'm looking forward to with, our new head of the AICPA in regards to how to do advisory work, how to stand out as a CPA doing advisory work. Because right now, audit is literally like the only thing that I think being a CPA, you have to be there for. And we need to completely change that script. So yeah, it's very boring what people think we do. I know I've heard people say, don't say that we're cool because that just looks dumb. And it's like, but we are cool. If you have a passion and purpose for what you do, you need to tell people about it, right?
So why don't we?
I try.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do. Why aren't more firms out there talking about what they do and, getting, I don't know, their interns to go to conferences like you're at in Vegas with them and let them meet these people and talk to them and see what they do? Because I know there's a lot of misunderstanding, because I talk to a lot of high school students about it, and they think like you said, we sit in the back room with a green eye shade. And when they learn that we're financial psychiatrists who probably should have couches in our office
Right.
and know everything about our customers, they're like, wow, that's intriguing. I didn't know that. Isn't that our fault? And it's not the AICPA's fault. It's people in the profession's fault for not getting out there and putting on a better, explanation of what we really do.
I think everyone can absorb a little bit of blame. I mean, it's tough when you're down in the weeds the day to day of like, okay, well, how do I go help other people turn to this? They've done a really good job, and we've seen a lot of progress this last year with the numbers of, accounting grads and reducing the hours and all that kind of jazz to get more people in the profession. I'm actually very pleasantly surprised that started to work. Because I didn't really see the why behind it. Like, how did we get so many more people? Was it us just talking more about it? I don't know. I don't know the why behind those numbers, but they are showing in a good uptick direction.
And here's a bigger problem, I think, than the pipeline, the top of the funnel. The 3 to 7 people that just leave.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that happens?
The 3 to 7 people that just leave. What do you mean? Who are the 3 to 7?
3 to 7 years.
Oh.
and they leave.
Bob and Jane? Oh, okay. Yeah. Because they're put into crappy work. I mean, they're doing bottom of the barrel stuff. The managers are still coming out of that old mindset of like, you have to do your diligence and then you get to earn your more work. We need to actually be putting advisory services and training into colleges and maybe even high school. So integrating how to do tax advisory and whatnot. I've reached out to several colleges to offer my services and they're not taking me up on it, which is probably a good thing because I do way too much stuff anyways. But yeah, we need more training that's focused on advisory and how to do it. for, I think, college students to be able to kick off strong in that area instead of being like, you have to do 2 years of compliance work before you can do any advisory, or you have to do 8 years of compliance work before you do any advisory. I don't agree with that at all. I think that anyone can go like straight into advisory. You just have to be like a detective and have a passion for wanting to help people. And then you can hone in on, if you're a smart person, you can hone in on like 6 things that can really help a business out and then just like run with it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, this advisory thing is not a new idea. We mentioned Ed mentioned Paul Dunn. Paul Dunn created a program back in the 90s. We've been talking about this for 30 some odd years. Why do you think that most CPAs haven't made this transition to advisory? What do you think some of the reasons are?
I think it's too gray for them, just like with the value pricing stuff. It's too gray, and they're not getting instructions and directions from our governing bodies that are like, hey, this is exactly how people are doing this well and doing it right. There's a lot of risk involved in our job, and accountants are naturally don't gravitate towards risk, right? I mean, I realized I'm a little bit different. I was a finance undergrad. I thought I would be a financial planner, and I started working for a financial planner / CPA in Fort Worth, started doing tax prep, and like fell in love with finding like magical money for people, right? But I don't think I'm like a lot of accountants. I think they really like that structure, right? And we're not giving enough of that structure and confidence.
Yeah, my big answer is I think that we're caught up in being the professional, which means we're supposed to have all the answers. And consultants and advisors are not paid for answers. They're paid for more beautiful questions. And we think that's a sign of ignorance to ask questions. And it's the farthest thing from the truth. Without a good question, a great answer has nowhere to go.
Oh yeah, questions are everything. I mean, it's, the whole coaching methodology and drawing answers out of people, but then also just asking questions so that you can add your knowledge on top of that. It's game changing. I love it.
Yeah, and we think questions are everything as well. Let me ask you this. AI, I see AI as being one of the biggest impetuses to adopt value pricing because technology eats hours. How do you see AI unfolding in terms of business model innovation? What do you think it's going to the impacts it's going to have?
It's interesting because some days I'm like, there's always that human element that we can bring to the table in advisory and stand out. But AI does advisory really well too. It has some great questions. It can bring a lot to the table. It can process a heck of a lot more than we can as humans. And so I love AI. I love it. I've seen both sides of it with integrating it into TaxPlanIQ, but then also realizing like where that human element really does shine still. And so it is the future. We have to embrace it as like our BFF and just like use it to like the best way that you possibly can every single day. I mean, I use it for every single thing I do all the time. And it saves from like, I heard someone say a couple days ago, they went from 3 days trying to find the answer to a question. Then they asked a specialist who took 3 hours and still didn't find the answer. And then they asked ChatGPT and it took 3 minutes. So it's like, wow, 3 days to 3 minutes. That's pretty cool. But we can't focus on how we're getting to the answers we're getting to. We have to focus on the fact that we can do that because it is a really unique skill, I think, to be able to interpret all of this data and knowledge from AI or anywhere and then come up with the best answer, right?
I'm curious about the white space when AI saves you 10 hours a week. What do you do with that extra time?
I think people are scared of that. Yeah. Because I mentioned the 4-hour work week. I did this like balance sheet workshop a couple weeks ago. And I was like, y'all can get in as many hours back in a week as you want. And then I saw an AI expert from OpenAI speak 2 years ago saying that we were all going to be playing volleyball on the beach while AI like does all our work or something. I think honestly that really scares us because we are very strong workers in this profession and we don't know what to do with our time. But figure it out or just start another business. I mean,
Well, I think it gives us more time to be human, right? And
Yeah,
have human
yeah.
connections with
For
customers.
sure.
No profession, no entrepreneur is concerned about working hard. I don't know of anybody who's changed the world in a significant way that wasn't a workaholic. This idea
Yeah.
that we can have languid days at the museum, this is just BS. The world does not, I don't think we're tired or burnt out because we work hard. I
Yeah.
think we're tired and burnt out because of moral injury, that we're not living our purpose as professionals, that we're not making the impact that we know we could because we have too many customers. We go from one thing to another without stepping back and reflecting, like after action reviews teach us to do. And I think it's moral injury more than burnout.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I haven't heard y'all talk about the moral injury side of things yet, but definitely interested to hear more about it because burnout is, everything just kind of falls into that, right? You're like, oh, you must be burnout, you must be burnout. But you're right. I love certain aspects of work, and then I really don't like other aspects of it. And I rearranged my entire time and schedule every day and blocked like every hour to where I knew that I was like being utilized in the right areas and things that I really love to do. And so I totally agree. I think that people miss their purpose. I used to actually put a little sticky note like on my laptop or computer every day to like help me remember what that purpose was, because you can get lost in it sometimes. When y'all mentioned being like a financial counselor, I wanted to be a true counselor growing up. And then somebody I knew was a counselor and they were nasty crazy. So I was like, I am not going that direction.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take care of myself, make sure I make money. That's why I became a CPA. That's not passion, right? That's just like, just dealing with being in an economy. But I've been able to bring it full circle back because what we do is really like financial counseling, but we don't have to get into the nitty gritty of like deep diving into the trauma of why somebody like is emotionally like totally messed up, but we can still figure out their finances for them and then help them feel better in general. So I love it.
Yeah. No, burnout, it was coined in 1970. We've been talking about burnout now for 55 years, and the stats on it haven't gotten any better. You still read 50% of pick your profession, doctors, dentists, CPAs, lawyers, 50% suffer from burnout. Well, Jackie, if I went through your home and changed all your light bulbs and 50% of them blew out, would I blame the individual bulb or would I blame the electrical system? And in our case, I think the electrical system, which is the business model, is to blame. It's tracking every 6 minutes of your time. It's billing for every minute, for every interaction, for every phone call, for every meeting. That's not how we're wired as professionals. We're here to guide transformations. And you can't do that by staring at the clock and worrying about the math of the moment.
For sure.
And
that's true.
And that's moral injury, not burnout.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
It's a much better diagnosis.
I'm going to have to rename the subtitle of my upcoming book.
So no more yoga, no more mindfulness, no more, nap pods this stuff, it's all bandages until we fix the business model. The business model, I think, is what kicks the 3 to 7 year person out. You talk to anybody who's left public accounting and took a CFO job in industry, and you ask them, call them up and say, how's your job going? What's the first thing out of their mouth?
Great.
I love it. I don't have to do a timesheet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of good reasons, but yeah, that's a really good one.
That's not the only one, but it's part of the bigger business model, the mindset that, the values in the time. Like you said, it's in the knowledge and it's in the relationship that we have, and relationships don't scale. This is why concierge doctors are kicking ass.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause they
I
limit
know you
themselves.
love the concierge aspect, and I do too. I mean, my firm, I was called the Concierge CPA. That's the name
Yep.
of my podcast. I was just telling some executive of the ICPA this week. I was like, that word concierge never really caught on with our industry, but it should have. I mean, it's what people want and need, and that's where you can really feel like your purpose is there. But
I
yeah,
wrote
there's still
about
so
it in
much
my first book.
resistance.
I wrote about it in my first book in 1998 because our colleague had that idea, Dan Morris, of being a concierge CPA. He says, I don't want to be a one-stop shop because I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the first stop shop where my customers call me first, ask me whatever. Can you get me Super Bowl tickets? Can you get me into the French Laundry? Whatever it might be. He says,
Yeah.
because if I can't do it, somebody in my network can. So
Right.
his idea of concierge was leveraging his social capital, which was
For sure.
brilliant. And he knew this back in
Mhm.
the 90s when I met him, before I met him.
Love it.
So anyway, well, Jackie, unfortunately, we're up against it. And folks, I'd like to remind you, if you want to contact me or Ed, send us an email to asktsoe@thresholdnow.com. Do check us out on Patreon, where you can get access to our bonus content. You can do that at patreon.com/TSOE. And now a word from our sponsors.
All clear. Let me know when you're ready for your accountant back in.
Okay.
Awesome. Great stuff, Jackie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on our live stream that we have a comment that came in. So when we get back, Jackie, I'll share the comment with you and ask you to comment on it. So love the fact that we're
Sounds
starting
good.
to do this live streaming and have some actual interaction with the people who are listening in. So yeah,
That is really fun. Yeah.
yeah. So but by the way, this concept of moral injury is really, really important. Definitely go back and listen to the show that we did with Wendy Dean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Will do.
Wendy Dean. She wrote a book called If I Betray These Words, I Promise You It Will Change Your Feelings About Burnout. You'll never use that term again.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh my gosh. I can't wait. I love that stuff. I've been getting so burnt out with books lately, or
yeah,
morally
Morally injured. Yeah.
morally injured.
injured. Yeah. It's like, it's all the same stuff, like
Yeah,
over
it's
and
all
over
the
and over
same crap.
again.
I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
No, until we diagnose it right, we won't be able to fix it or ameliorate it. Just like a
Mhm.
doctor that misdiagnoses you is not going to help you.
Yeah. I
For
just
sure.
put the episode in the chat, Jackie, if you want to just bookmark it or something, and then you can find it on the podcast
Perfect.
later. But it's episode 503.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, we think you will definitely resonate with it for sure. You really will.
Mhm.
And like you said, part of the challenge is, well, let's come back. Let's come back. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about this. Let's go Jordan, jump in.
All right. Coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
And we are back with Jackie Meyer, the founder of TaxPlanIQ. And all right, I'm not supposed to ask this question, Jackie, but I was at the 40 under 40,
Uh-huh.
and you weren't there.
Yeah. Well,
So did you not? So did you not make it, or did you turn 41?
I need to correct you earlier. So I aged out or graduated in
There you go.
2022. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm 41 now, but I was
Okay.
like about to turn 40 that year or something like that. I don't know. I'm like, geez, this is a lot. And now everyone has to know exactly how old I am, like whether I qualify for 40 under 40 or not. But yeah,
It was-
I miss that stuff. I miss
Well,
that stuff.
That that's the downside of those age based ones, right? Is that you do age out of it, and people then know your age. You're like, oh, okay, too funny.
Some people like, oh my gosh, there's some people in there that've been there for like, I feel like 20 years. I'm like, you're not aging at all. Like Caleb, although he like started me with like 19 or something.
He did.
I don't know. He's a little
Caleb did.
genius child.
Yeah, he is. He is. So speaking of youngsters, we do have a listener to the live stream, Sean M, and he writes this. So I'd love to get your reaction to this. He's an accounting student here, hand up. Literally, no one my age knows what an accountant does other than taxes. So what advice do you have for our friend Sean M? Obviously talk more about it, but it's going to be a struggle for him, right? So let's acknowledge that. But what do you suggest that Sean keep in mind as he's going through his career?
I'm worried for Sean. I don't know if he has mentors or people he can latch onto that feel like they've found their passion and purpose, because it is kind of hard to find. I mean, there's less than 3 to 5% of us, we don't know for sure, but less than 3 to 5% of us that actually do tax advisory. I don't even want to call it tax advisory anymore. I want to call it like ROI advisory, because tax scares everybody. No one wants to do it. And it doesn't define at all what we're doing. We're just trying to help people save money and, find strategies to make their lives better. So, I mean, I would say like go on CPA Academy or something like that and find some advisory CPE for free that you can do to figure out what other options you have. I was advocating, Canopy did this little debate, like old school versus new school accountant. And I was on that last year. And I told them they need to do one like featuring the different types of advisory services and let us like debate out which one's the best and why. Something like that, I think, would really help people identify like what sounds exciting to them, right? And maybe go that direction. But we don't have enough education out there in the public or in colleges or schools that are going to help people make those decisions.
Well, let me just channel my inner Sean M for a second here and just say, like, because you did say that this was a challenge, that there's still a lot of firms out there who are expecting people to do their time before they can be put into advisory practice. So what should Sean M look for in a firm when he's working with? Would you suggest that he go like, top 100, get that experience? Or do you think, he's got to maybe find where he should play first and maybe say, that's not for me if I'm going to have to put in 8 years before I get to do any advisory work? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I did Big Four. I came in the back way because I worked full time through college, and I ended up in this like little weird office in the back alleys of Dallas at Deloitte, and then worked my way into the high net wealth division. And everyone said that's what you're supposed to do, but I could barely make it for 2 years. I got like a year, 10 months, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. So I do not advocate for Big Four, Big 100. I advocate for the boutique firms that you can go and interview them and be like, hey, would you say you're a pretty traditional firm? And I mean, just based on that answer is probably going to give you a really good feel for what you'll get exposed to or not. And then I would ask, like, what does make your firm different? Or, what's going to accelerate my career? Do people find a lot of passion and purpose in what they're doing here? And if you're like getting a blank stare, then, you got to just head for the hills, like get out of there fast.
I completely agree. I mean, I think one of the questions that anyone who's interviewing for any position at any level, whether it's entry level all the way on up to you're going to be, maybe an incoming CEO, is what's the state of the mission statement here? What's the state of the purpose? And if you don't get an active positive response to that, or you get we have a mission, let me look it up.
Right. Let me find it and read it to you real fast.
Right. Let me, because if it's not something that is lived by the people in day to day, it's not going to exist, right? And what I call the default purpose, the default strategy will be put in place, which is increase sales, decrease costs, make the bastards work harder. That's how we're going to do. If there's not something else that's there, that's what's going to replace it. It fills the vacuum, right?
For sure. Yeah. I used to really resist like core values because I thought it was too corporate, and I was still like so anti Deloitte and like big corporate environments and whatnot. But I realized like core values are just like the most important thing, because you have to start with what you believe in as the founder and then expand it to make sure that your team all believe in it. And I mean, we recite our core values at least like monthly, which makes it sound like we're drones, but they're important. They're really important. And like trust is a very, very important thing, number one thing for me. And so if someone's coming in the door and we're not on the same page about that, or that's not important to them, that's going to cause huge issues going forward in the firm, right? So, you gotta document that stuff out and have it memorized.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My mentor, who and who's been on the show a number of times, Howard Hansen. One of the things that he would say is like, if you as a leader, when you hear yourself and are sick of talking about your mission, vision, values, whatever you want to call it, right? There's lots of different names for it. When you're sick of hearing yourself, you're only halfway there.
Yeah.
Because, right. It's not until your people are like, yeah, we got this, right, or can recite it back, or the behaviors just become ubiquitous. And one firm that I worked with, when they instituted this policy where they had a core value of the month that they followed, and there was like a contest where whoever won a like $25 gift card or whatever for exemplifying that value. The owner of the firm said to me, he says that it was the biggest transformation ever, because I never now worried about what my people was going to do in any given situation, even if it was something that hadn't come up before, because I knew what they were going to do is they were going to run it through the filter of my mission, vision, values before they did anything.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's exemplary behavior. Something I love that I know probably a lot of your listeners or viewers probably know about already is EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're constantly going back to your core values and evaluating every single person and like your people analyzer of, are they meeting those core values? And you literally hire, fire, promote based on that. And it's just like, it's business for dummies. EOS is like business for dummies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good standard. If people are wondering, where do I start with all this? That's where I would start.
Yeah, I've not worked personally with EOS one-on-one, but everyone that I've talked to that has used it has had a fairly positive experience with it. So and that says a lot, because there's been a lot of people that have talked about previous iterations of this stuff that have not gone well. So or that they just can't possibly stick with over time because it gets to be too much. So that's a plus there. Well, I've only got 3 more minutes with you, so let's have a little fun here. And I want to know, at Engage, was there anything that you learned this week that surprised you?
I learned some things about some people.
well, perhaps let's.
When I was let me wipe that out of my mind. Let's see, what did I learn? I felt like there was a new like hope and excitement this year that I hadn't felt in the last few years. So I don't know. I mean, Ron talks about how this stuff's been around for so long and it gets so aggravating and frustrating that like people haven't been doing it. But I think we're kind of in like the perfect storm or perfect environment where we're getting really like squeezed thin, and we have all these new innovations coming, and it's like people are realizing that they have to change. And if they have to feel like they have to be forced to change, and so be it. I don't really care why people change, but change is going to be for the better for everyone. So I feel like there's more movement in that direction.
Yeah, there's a great quote by General Erickson Shecky, who was chief of staff of the U.S. Army under the first George Bush and then into the Clinton years. And the quote is, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. And I think that we may have hit that mark here where because Ron has been talking about irrelevancy for 5+ years when he gets listed on the top 100 most influential people. I know for a number of years in a row he put what's the top concern of the CPA profession. He should relevancy. So are we becoming less and less relevant? So, well, Jackie, Ron's going to take you the rest of the way home, but I just want to thank you for appearing today, especially from your hotel room in Las Vegas, and hopefully you can get out of there in one piece. I know you've been there a long time, but I can take it for about 48 hours. So bless you for being there longer. But we're up against our break. Want to remind our listeners they can contact Ron or me by sending an email to asktsoe@thresholdnow.com. The website is The Soul of Enterprise, where you can see show notes as well as previews to upcoming shows. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
Time goes so fast.
You're counting back in.
We always joke that this is the fastest hour of our week.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then I see you have 1 minute, and then I'm like, oh, I better shut up. But then you're like, there's still so much.
So
Yeah, this is really fun. Oh my gosh. And Ed, like I adore you and you have really been such a great supporter and encourager over the years. So I just really want to express that to you. So,
oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like people who are entrepreneurs, and you are definitely one of the most entrepreneurial people I've ever met. So,
Yeah.
my why is I believe that entrepreneurs continue the work of creation. I mean, that's
I know. And I love that statement. I love that statement. It
So-
reminds me a lot of Jordan Rayner is one of my favorite authors. He's a faith-based author, but he says a similar thing.
Mhm.
And it's just all about pulling us back to our purpose, right? Which
Yep.
is pretty much
Yeah.
what we keep coming back to here. So
Yeah. Yep. You ready, Ron?
Awesome. Yep. Ready. Let's do it, Jordan.
All right. Coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Jackie Meyer. And Jackie, what's your take on private equity?
Oh, I think private equity is going to be really disappointed in years to come. But I do like the fact that firms are getting valued a lot higher than they used to be. 1x ARR isn't the standard anymore. When I sold my firm in 2022, I sold for 1.5 ARR. And that was only because I was in a business group of outside of the industry. And they were like, you only get 1x annual revenue, like average for your firm? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's crazy. That is crazy compared to other industries. You should ask for more. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I got it. And I felt really good about it at the time. But I mean, now we're seeing things go above 2x ARR, et cetera. I was worried because I think it might have been at Engage last year. I watched a session from a PE guy, and he talked about how they don't care what services you're offering. And that really worried me because it's like, well, yeah, at the end of the day, the numbers matter. And I guess that's all they care about. But the numbers aren't going to accelerate at the pace that these firms want, right? At the investment pace that they want, if you're not doing the right kind of services. So I'm worried about that. What do you think?
I'm on the fence about it. I have a lot of problems with private equity because to me, they don't seem, when they came into the car wash industry, HVAC industry, they changed the business model. They put those companies on subscriptions. They're not doing that with CPA firms. They're doubling down on billable hours, realizations, all of that.
It's so weird.
They're consecrating moral injury is what they're doing. They're embalming it with new capital. I agree. It's exciting to be paid fair market value rather than, book value for
Sure.
for your firm. But these guys, they have a short-term time horizon, 5-7 years. I mean, a profession, and we say we're a profession. I think we can dispute that, but put that aside. If we're a profession, you can't price a profession. You pledge it. You pledge it. It's something you are. It's not just something you do. When you don the mantle of physician, that's your being. You take an oath. And the oath is, if I betray these words, may my own life be destroyed. Some of the Hippocratic oaths that are taken. And I don't think private equity understands that.
For sure. And then you see, like Blake Oliver, whatnot, saying that you hear that they're even asking accountants to not state that they're a CPA anymore because it's hurting them versus helping them. And it's just a really, really concerning time for the profession if we don't have change. And that's why I'm excited to see that I think we are. But I really think as of a year ago, I would have said the CPA is almost dead. And I know that's very controversial, and I am a CPA. I love being a CPA, but I just don't think it's going to survive if we don't move towards that change.
Yeah, and here's a dirty little secret, though. I joined Pete Mark Mitchell in 1984, so I come from the Big 8 era. That's how you card and date us, right? They would not allow anyone to use CPA to hang the certificate in their offices. Couldn't do it. This is nothing new. The Big 4 always thought its brand was better than the CPA brand. To this day, the Big Four, you can't find CPA on their website. Good luck. You can find it on the audit reports they sign. It'll say, you know, Ernst & Young or whatever, certified public accountants, but you won't find it anywhere else.
Yeah,
So this is
yeah.
nothing new. This is not PE's fault.
Yeah. I also don't understand why consulting is like completely dying in the Big Four. You know, they're like completely closing down those divisions when that's like the most exciting thing to think about and work towards for a smaller boutique firms. It's like opposite. I don't know why that's happening to them.
Sarbanes-Oxley is part of it. Just the
Mhm.
you know, the whole independence thing. I'm really curious. I know Mark has been on this listening tour, you know, via email and going out there and talking. What did you say to him? Because I have a laundry list a mile long about what I want to see change. But I'm curious
For
what
sure,
you
yeah.
what you said
Actually,
to
I
him.
meant to pull it up because I have a feeling y'all are going to want to talk about this. So, first of all, I'm very concerned about contingent fees and the direction that contingent fees are going. The fact that like people kept assuming that the value pricing methodology that I was offering is a contingent fee is
Right.
just one more reason why they can't do it, right?
Do it.
And it never
Yep.
was. It never was. It never will be.
Yep.
So, but I hate the fact that like there's so many restrictions on the CPA that a non-certified person can do the same work, charge whatever the heck they want, charge a contingent fee or anything they want. And it's really sloppy work and bad practices, but they're making a ton more money and they're having a lot more success. So I honed in on like two messages around contingent fees and how we need to work towards more relaxation in those, towards more like the attorney model where it's more allowable and flexible. And, you know, unfortunately, the IRS is going the opposite direction with it right now, but the AICPA is fighting it a bit. I did not see it listed on, you know, Mark's big keynote slide of like what he's focusing on in the next year. That was not listed. So I was a little disappointed about that, but I guess there's only so much they can do about that particular side. At least I think they're on the right mindset. And then the other thing that I was really fighting for is tax advisory services, because we went from nothing to the personal financial services division or whatever, which is like these financial planners at the AICPA. It was too big of a leap. It was way too big of a leap. And there's not enough people that are doing it. And tax advisory is like in the middle of that. But they need to like bridge the gap of just like, here's one specific way of doing like income tax advisor in the US or whatever that's going to be profitable and how you can price it, et cetera. And so I was like, I am here. I am willing. I am like one of the top experts in the world on this matter at this point. I'm volunteering my time. I can help you create a certification or anything like that. So I was just reiterating that to him. He did, you know, respond. He was very kind and very detailed. And he hooked me up with several other executives at the AICPA. And then we have had really good movement with the pricing methodology. I mean, it's really hard to get the AICPA to release these things. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, those were my top two things. And I did mention, like, I think the profession is going to die if we don't double down on helping people understand how to do the better work and making sure that the CPA designation revolves around that work, right? Like you have to be a CPA to know that you're going to be the top expert in your field around TAS services or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, you know, we have that, like you said, we have that in audit. And if you read, I don't know if you've ever come across Baruch Lev, a professor at New York, he's now retired, but he wrote a book called The End of Accounting. And he was basically saying, listen, we think the audit is the gold standard for investment and protecting the capital markets. It's less than 5% of the information that investors use to make decisions.
Yeah, and no one wants to do it.
Yeah, and he just tore down the audit brick by brick by brick and said this is completely useless. Every time SEC drops financial reports onto Edgar, you know, where you can download, they get about 12 downloads on average.
Oh my
Nobody's
gosh.
nobody's reading these things, and yet we're spending billions of dollars, making companies spend billions of dollars, much more for Peekaboo and all the rules they have dumped on it. And the thing is an Etzel. It's completely obsolete. I want to get rid.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get rid of the monopoly in audit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to open it up
Yeah.
to financial statement insurance. Let Lloyd's of London come in, and for investors that want to buy financial statement insurance, they'll write a policy. They'll write a policy for anything, and also
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
let the stock market exchanges, NASDAQ, S&P, let them hire and pay the auditors. That would remove. You can't be independent if you're paid by the company you're auditing. I don't care what the
Right. That never
AICPA
made sense, right?
that doesn't make sense. And economists have been saying this for 50 years, and nobody listens. But yeah, let the stock exchanges do it. Let them hire the auditors.
Well, I haven't seen an update on this, but I saw about 3 weeks ago they were considering getting rid of the PCAOB board, and I'm like,
Fold it into the
interesting.
SEC.
Yeah.
Fold it into
What
the
do you think
SEC.
about that?
Oh, I think it'd be great. I think we should get rid of our license. I don't think we should be licensed by the state. I think the AICPA should do what the actuaries and mechanics do. And the doctors are board certified. And they're board certified by the insurance companies and by the hospitals that they work in. Because if you're a doctor and you have a license, you can do anything. You can do brain surgery one day, you can do psychiatry tomorrow, but you can't because you're not going to be able to get board certified. That's what really protects the public is board certification, not the license from the state. And because we're licensed in 50 different states, the AICPA is a fraternity. You violate their rules, the worst they can do is kick you out. It's the state boards of accountancy that have the power over our butts. And I think that
You're
needs
right.
to go away.
Ooh, deep stuff. Okay, I'm gonna have to have y'all onto my podcast so I can ask y'all like a billion more questions about this because there's so much more to discuss. Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Well, Jackie, thank you so much. This has been great. We really appreciate you taking the time out from a busy Vegas schedule to be here. And Ed, what do we have on store for next week?
Next week, Ron, we are going to talk to Barry Labov, who is talking about the power of differentiation. Really look forward to that conversation as well.
Excellent. I'll see you in 167 hours.
This has been The Soul of Enterprise, Business in the Transformation Economy, sponsored by Woodard, building your ideal practice with coaching, education, community, and resources. Join us next week at 3 p.m. Eastern, that's noon Pacific. In the meantime, visit us at www.thesoulofenterprise.com.
All clear. Great show.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
No problem. Hope you all have a great weekend.
All right.
too.
Good.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank y'all so much. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully
Yeah,
I'll be able to
awesome.
talk to y'all again soon.
Okay.
Yep. Are you
Take
headed
care.
out tonight? Are you getting out of there?
I'm leaving like right now. So I
Okay,
gotta call
go.
the
Good.
valet and get the hell out, right?
Good.
Good for you.
Get
right.
while the
Awesome.
getting's good. Bye. Thanks.
Okay. Bye y'all.
See you,
Thank you
Jackie.
so much.
All right.
All right. Good. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. Greg, how was Hawaii? I mean, Italy.
Rome.
I'm sorry.
Hawaii. What?
Hawaii. Where the hell did that come from?
That was
Italy.
that was the family trip 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Italy was amazing. New Pope says hello, and I do appreciate the grace provided to me by the Soul of Enterprise for the time away. It feels like I was gone a really long time. It was just quote unquote 2 weeks, but it was a Friday to a Friday to a Friday, so I missed 3 weeks of the live show.
Yeah. Oh, how was the flight? Do you fly direct Atlanta to Rome?
Oh Lord, no, that was much too expensive. I'm schlepping a family of 4 with me wherever we go, and this was a points flight. So we conveniently, I think, connected through Montreal in both directions.
Well, it's technically French. It's
Yeah. But it was convenient because on the way there we had a 3-hour flight, and then we had a longer 6-hour flight with which to sleep. So instead of like connecting through London or Paris, connecting through Montreal made the second leg a bit longer, and we were able to sleep a little bit. So
yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Good strategy. Good strategy.
Yeah, it was coincidental. It was all about the points and making sure that we could cash in those points for four round trip plane tickets across an ocean.
Right. So just because I know we talked about this on a bonus episode, I think 2 years ago, maybe but Tivoli Fountain was closed down, and then they had to they reopened it, but
Trevi.
you have to pay Trevi. I'm sorry, but you have to pay in order to get like even into the area now.
Sort of. So it's really interesting. It is just a busy area around the Trevi Fountain because it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's one of the most gorgeous things I saw while I was there, and this was Rome, right? So there's a lot of gorgeous things around. It's in this. It feels like it's in this alley, down another alley, and all of a sudden, boom, there's the Trevi Fountain, right? So it is constricted in terms of space for sure. Unlike, say, for example, the Parthenon or the Colosseum, these things have a lot of room to breathe even today with modern Rome being built around it. So it's a little constricted, and during the day, there is a ticketed process for getting down the steps of the fountain and being able to stand on those ledges and look up at this fountain that's built into the side of a building. But what we discovered, because we stayed right there, our apartment was right at the Spanish Steps, right near the Trevi Fountain. It was a perfect location. What we discovered is after 9 p.m., all of the guided or timed or ticketed access just goes away. And there's a police officer standing there to make sure nobody does anything stupid. And people more or less are at dinner or back in their apartments, and it is a beautiful experience at night. It is not that crowded, and we actually went 3 times, once with some friends and then twice on our own, to the Trevi Fountain at night, and were able to get as close to it as we wanted every single time.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it was closed until about maybe a month or two ago for cleaning and renovation as well.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is it a really busy attraction, it was closed for an extended period so that they could clean it and collect all the pennies. You know, they probably made millions of dollars. I have no idea.
Right. Well, but that was one of I think we talked about this, and you, of course, experienced it. They wanted to have it ready in time for the Jubilee year. Yeah. So that's the whole point. Because that's, Ron, do you know about the Jubilee? Which is is it every 10 years, Greg?
I think it's 13.
13. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that there's a papal jubilee, and a special door is open only during this 1 year period, and this is
the door is an entrance into St. Peter's Basilica. There's a main door, of course, right? You've probably seen it on TV or in person. I don't know. And then there's looking off to the right of that door when you're outside the basilica. There's another door, but if you're on the inside and it's not a jubilee year, it's a wall. They brick it up. You don't even know that there's a door there. So every 13 years they take the wall down, and you're allowed to walk through the door, which is a very big deal for Catholics and visitors to St. Peter's during Jubilee years. So we had the opportunity to walk through the door. It's not a timed thing. It's not. It's there. Feel free to walk through it. You just have to be there on the right year at the right time for the door to be open.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did, once we were inside of St. Peter's Basilica, I did make sure that my children understood very clearly that I was named after St. Gregory, who has a shrine inside of St. Peter's Basilica, right? I was like, that's for me, right? You know, that's for me.
That's neat.
So, Greg, I'm going to ask you a question that I asked you in a private conversation with you because I appreciate that our audience will like this, and Ron will appreciate this answer. Italian food, better in New York, New Jersey, or Italy?
Yeah. So this is this. It pains me to answer the question this way. It's not better or worse. I really like New York Italian food, and the food that we had in Rome, the 4 Roman pastas, you know, the carbonara, the cacio e pepe, and the 2 others, they are fantastic, and the pasta is perfectly chewy and al dente, and it's great. Then you get down into the coast, and it's a lot of anchovies, which I also love, a lot of fish, first course of pasta, second course of protein. But at the end of the day, I grew up eating New York Italian food, and I really like it. Now, with all that being said, I do have some 00 flour imported directly from Italy that should have arrived at my home about an hour ago, so that I can make fresh pasta tonight for the family. So
Ooh.
the food
Okay.
is in Italy is definitely not lost on me. I think what I really appreciate about New York Italian food is that it is rooted in Italian food, but the Italian immigrants into New York used, like all Italian food, they used what they had on hand. They used what they could get a hold of. They no longer chased after the lemon off the Amalfi Coast that's bigger than my head. They don't grow lemons in Manhattan that are bigger than my head. So they shifted the ingredients they used to cook, and that's why New York Italian food is so different from traditional Italian food, particularly the Roman pastas.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
And-
Now there
and
is
you-
something. Go ahead, Ed.
No, and mention you have a take on pizza too.
Yeah. So we started in Rome, and then we made our way south, ultimately to Sicily, and that's where we ended our vacation by making the round trip back to Rome from Palermo and then off. Roman pizza is thin crust, very crunchy. My son was not a fan, and my son has never met a piece of pizza that he doesn't like. He ate it, he enjoyed it. But then we made it down to Naples. That's Neapolitan pizza. That's what you know is New York pizza, right? And my son was in heaven, right? And then you make it into Sicily, and they get a little more experimental with their pizzas in Sicily. You can get Neapolitan pizza because it's relatively close to the coast of mainland Italy. You can get pizza with like the bubble crust edge, but primarily it's still Neapolitan pizza. So there was a difference for me between the Roman pizza and the Neapolitan pizza as we traveled further south. And it turns out I'm a big fan of the Neapolitan pizza, but that should be no surprise to anyone given that I grew up eating New York pizza.
Right. No, not a pineapple to be had on the pizza though. I'm just curious.
Oh, Ed, we did find a pizza shop serving Hawaiian pizza.
Oh.
Yeah, we did. And now what I learned in Maui, when we were in Maui a couple of years ago, there was a pizza food truck that was featured on Guy Fieri's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And this pizza food, I did not know that at the time. I went back and looked at it, like, oh my gosh, he's been on the Triple D show, right? But I was talking to the owner of the food truck as he pulled up in his truck with like bottled water from Costco that he was loading onto the food truck, right? And I was fascinated by the fact that he'd built a brick oven pizza into a trailer, called it a food truck, parked it in Lahaina, and that was how he made a living, right? So I asked him about Hawaiian pizza. And he's like, Hawaiian pizza is not Hawaiian. He's like, that's a scourge brought upon us. His words, not mine. That's a scourge brought upon us by the Canadians because it's pineapple and Canadian bacon. It's not pineapple and bacon. It's pineapple and Canadian bacon. So Hawaiian pizza in Hawaii is primarily as a result of Canadian influence. So if you love Hawaiian pizza, thank a Canadian. And if you don't, then tell a Canadian you don't like it, right? That's where the influence comes from. I don't know how it made it over to Italy. I think it's just a thing now in the world that the Canadians could put their mark on and say, we did this. My daughter did have, this was strange, but it was very normal. We saw it on several menus. She had potato and sausage pizza. So little crumpled up bits of roasted potatoes and sausage on a pizza.
That sounds delicious.
It was delicious. It was really good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. There is something that I saw repeatedly on display by Italians and never really on display by tourists. I did bring a visor with me, and my daughter was like, "You're such an American." I'm like, "Hey, we've got a beach day. I want to wear a visor and protect my head, right?" But for the most part, when you saw someone wearing a ball cap, it was likely a local, because if you're going to travel, you're not probably going to travel with your ball cap, right? It usually looked like an Italian to me, and the ball cap, Ed, 99% of the time.
It was the evil empire.
It was a damn New York Yankees
cap. I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I did see one. I saw one Mets cap.
Did you?
In Cefalu, which is a beach town on the northern coast of Sicily. And I said to the guy,
"Did you LGM him? Yeah. Let's go Mets."
Right?
Yeah.
Now he was. I picked up in the accent. He was Dutch. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
But he loved the hat because his buddy who lives in New York was like, "This is the Subway Series New York Mets logoed hat.
Mm,
So it was a throwback, right?
Mm,
And it was awesome. And as I was standing there complimenting him on his hat, a gentleman heard the English and spoke up. He was from Ohio. It was like, a New York Mets hat, right? But the Yankees hats are a symbol of I'm assuming culturally a symbol of Italy's connection to New York. It's not that people are New York Yankees fans. They're football fans, right? Soccer fans. They don't really care about the Yankees. But that emblem, the NY, the
mark of the
serif
beast.
font, the mark of the beast, yes. That's their cultural connection to the New York Italian, and it's a shame because it should be a New York Mets hat. Personally.
There you go. But speaking of baseball hats, I don't know if you guys saw this. Did you see that Leo the 13th had to put on a Chicago White Sox hat this week?
Did he really?
Yep, he did.
Awesome.
He did.
Awesome.
So yep.
They're finally getting some respect.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have, and that's the other question is, are they going to bring Chicago deep dish pizza to Rome? I'm sorry, Chicago deep dish tomato and cheese pie.
Yeah.
Casserole.
The single greatest 8-minute segment I've ever seen on The Daily Show was back when Jon Stewart was the daily host, and he did a rant on New York pizza versus Chicago deep dish pizza. He went full New Yorker. He put on like the fake New Yorker accent. And he's like, who do you think you are to come to my city and tell, right? And he gets to a point. He's like, you want to know why I don't like Chicago deep dish pizza? Because when I fall asleep in my pizza at 2 a.m., I want to know I'm not going to drown. So it was a great rant on the difference between Chicago and New York pizza.
There you go.
Yeah, having worked in Chicago for about 4 years or so, right there in the Loop, near all the famous, River North, near all the famous Chicago deep dish places, I have imbibed.
It's not bad. I like it. It's just not pizza. That's all.
You got to cut it. It's a pie. I mean, like
it's a pie.
Yeah. And in the cast iron, I mean, the outside is really good. Like I enjoyed it. It's just not, you can't pick it up, fold it, and walk down the street.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. So the other question I have for you is Italian wine cheap in Italy? Like then.
You've heard the joke before that it's cheaper than water, but it is actually cheaper than water. Yes, and here's why it's cheaper than water. You would think, well, water's free, especially in Rome. All of the fountains in Rome are potable water. You just walk around with a water bottle. You fill your water up in any fountain you want. You can fill it up in the Trevi fountain if you want to, right? It'd be a little hard to reach that one because it's so big, but there are fountains everywhere, and you just fill your water up as you're walking around, right? So Rome is different, but you get into the smaller towns. We went down the Amalfi Coast. We went into Sicily, right? You sit down at a table in a restaurant, and first of all, there's a cover charge. Almost every single time. So it's a let's call it a €250 cover charge per person that sits down at the table. And then you ask for water, and they said, do you want sparkling or still? Well, we're Americans. We, generally speaking, are going to drink still water with our meal. It's just a cultural thing. And several times I said, do you have tap water? They go, no, we don't have tap water.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're a restaurant and you're cooking. Oh, okay. So the water was a $5 to $6 charge on every single bill from every restaurant that we walked into, and it's about half the size of a bottle of wine, and you can get a tremendous bottle of wine for about $10. Therefore, wine is cheaper than water. Yeah, and there were all sorts of fascinating wines. If you're curious, because I know the two of you love discovering new wines, the Mount Etna region of Sicily, so like the eastern coast of Sicily, which, by the way, Mount Etna did when it erupted. We were there that day and got to see it. That was awesome, right? But that region of Sicily has such nutrient-rich soil as a result of the ash from the volcano that any Etna-related wine, I don't think you're going to go wrong.
Good to know.
Was that your first trip, Greg, to Italy? Or
no, I'd never been back to the motherland. And we were at one point for a few days, we were about an hour and a half away by car from where my great grandfather is buried, and where my family came from. It didn't work out, and I didn't want to push my family to go visit. Hiring a private driver would have been $600-700 because it's a long trip, right?
Sure.
Driving a car in Sicily is like driving bumper cars, right?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
You're going to have to go back to the rental place and be like, I'm sorry about the dents and the dings, right? I saw multiple car accidents while we were there, right?
Rome is nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, it is nuts. I will say that it's nuts, but as you would expect, it's an organized chaos.
Yes, it is and all the Vespas darting in and out, and it nobody gets hit. I was amazed. What out of all the places you saw, what was your favorite?
Oh man, my favorite was easily Taormina, which is the town on the western coast of Sicily that looks up at Mount Etna.
Wow.
It was Disney World, Ron. It was beautiful cobblestone streets, clean, even though there were some tourists around and some boats that come in. They have a gorgeous beach. You stay up right in Old Town, and then you have to take the cable car down to get to the beach. It was just phenomenal. Now it was a little touristy, right? The town we stayed in that was the least touristy, and I felt out of place the first day, and I loved it because I wanted that discomfort to really sort of experience it, was on the Amalfi Coast in a town called Vietri-sur-Mar. And the reason we picked that town is because that's where the train station stopped. So we could roll our luggage to the Airbnb and not have to get additional transportation. So we picked Vietri-sur-Mar as our destination for 3 nights. And the people, it's a sleepy fishing town, really. A little bit of tourism, but not much. The people there were just so helpful and happy, and the restaurants were, but we picked a restaurant one night. It was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. We didn't see a table outside, and they were like, do you want to eat outside? I was like, yeah, but I don't know that we want to wait. He goes, no. He goes inside, he gets a table, he brings it out into the alley, he puts it down, he's like, your table.
Love it.
So Vietri was definitely on the Amalfi Coast, was the most, I would say the most number of people living a day-to-day life. You're sort of living like a local. And then Taormina on the eastern coast of Sicily was just the most gorgeous. I found an article today about Martin Scorsese giving a speech regarding the impact of immigrants in Hollywood, right? And he gave that speech from the Greek theater in Taormina overlooking Mount Etna. And I sent it to my family. I was like, you were there 4 days ago. You know exactly where he was standing.
Wow.
Yeah, neat.
That is so cool. Taormina, that sounds like a place like where Lamborghinis are built or something. Wow.
That, and Taormina does have that super high-end touristy section, but it is ridiculously clean. It's not terribly crowded. But for example, my son is beginning to discover what nice watches are. And he's like, well, how much is a Rolex, Dad? I was like, well, you can get a Submariner for about $8,000. I was like, but you see that store right there? That's the store. If you want to get into watches, that's where you go. And it was the Patek Philippe store, right? So they do have one of those. They had a Zegna store, which is a clothing company, right? We walked into Zegna because I know that we're not going to buy anything there, right? I mean, they're serving champagne on the back deck at the Zegna store, right? We walk in, they're polite, they greeted us, right? And he finds a bathing suit immediately, and he picks it up and he pulls out the press and he goes, oh my gosh. I was like, what? He goes, it's $550. I was like, yeah, it's Zegna, buddy. So that town, Taormina, seemed to have the nicest balance of activities for tourists, but at the same time, we were able to get an Airbnb there for $150 a night, and it was 4 stories. It was a stairwell, and at each landing of the stairwell was another room. So every family member had their own level, and it was a reverse floor plan. So the kitchen was at the top, opening up to the deck with these big doors and just a beautiful view, right? And because it was towards the end of our trip, I think we all really appreciated being able to sort of spread out a little bit and have our own floors and not be on top of each other as much as we had been for the previous 10 days.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's the town we will return to, or anything on the northern coast of Sicily. It's just I don't think we spent more than $150 a night on an Airbnb at all, even including Rome. And we stayed at the Spanish Steps, and we didn't stay in filthy, dirty places, right? These were just kind of normal places. It was in comparison to, we were talking about Maui. Maui broke the bank, man. That place is freaking expensive.
It is ridiculous.
And you were able to get around enough in I presume you don't speak Italian, Greg. Maybe you do, but either enough broken Italian or English to get through.
Enough broken Italian. What you find is that in the airports, for example, English is sort of the default, so you're okay there. But as you get into some of the smaller towns that we were in, you do run up against, I bought meat and cheese and some olives one day from a gentleman running a small shop in Vietri-sul-Mar, that fishing town I talked about, and he didn't speak a lick of English, and I barely speak Italian, right? Only by way of osmosis and being there, right? Ciao, buongiorno. Un espresso e quattro strudels, grazie. You pick up a little bit of it, right? But for the most part, Google Translate was the winner of the day.
Yeah.
And just 2 weeks ago, Google rolled out Live Translate, and Live Translate now is built into, for example, amongst other products, Google Hangouts, which is their version of Zoom. So you can hop on Google Hangouts, turn on Live Translate, and have a conversation, currently English to Spanish only, with a Spanish-speaking individual and an English-speaking individual in real time. Like there's very little gap in terms of what the processing time Google Translate needs inside of Hangouts to translate and return back to you in their voice what they said, but in your language. That is fascinating to me. But Google Translate was definitely the most helpful app. That and the train app, right? Those two. But Google Translate for the win, most certainly. We took a tour by car at night of Rome, and our driver had a station wagon with a big glass roof so that we had a decent view, and we stopped at a bunch of places. He didn't speak a lick of English. In fact, he had his phone mounted on his dash. We got in the car. He spoke something, and he hit the button, and it immediately said, "My name is Aldo. I will be your driver tonight. I don't speak English, but I'm going to give your family a fantastic tour of the city."
Wow.
Great. We're off to the races, man. Google Translate.
Make it happen. So I suppose that, there's not going to be a Google Translate for Brooklyn Italian, right?
Although, I could very easily,
mozzarella.
I could see that being a thing, and the idea that New York Italians drop the vowels from all of the word. I grew up saying mozzarella for mozzarella cheese, right? Mozzarella or muttadell for mortadella, right? or regna for oregano. Like we drop the beginning and the end vowel, right? You get to Italy and that's not a thing. They use all the vowels. So a Brooklyn to Italian or Brooklyn to English is it? Yeah, that's a possibility.
Prosciutto.
Yeah, prosciutto. I was at a deli one day in Rome, and I was like, "In some prosciutto," and he looked at me like, "I don't know what the heck."
Yeah, what was that Bensonhurst thing?
Bensonhurst spelling bee. The Bensonhurst spelling bee.
That's hilarious.
Tony Sirico and what's her name? Kelly Ripa. And I forget what his name is, but she's the husband of Kelly Ripa. So it's funny.
Yeah, good stuff. So definitely a great trip for the kids, something my family enjoyed. And of course, the trip of a lifetime. I mean, come on, that's not
that's awesome.
And you had a new pope, it's the excitement of the new pope.
We walked into about, I don't know, maybe 25 churches that my daughter had plotted out. Like my daughter.
She's had an art history class, right? That she was,
Not only did she just finish high school, she just finished her AP art history class and had just taken the art history AP exam. And there are 250 works of art that you need to study in order to perform at a decent level on the AP art history test. And plus her teacher her art history teacher, travels to Italy once a year because she knows a Duke that lives in Italy, and her family stays with the Duke.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Right. We didn't get hooked up, but that's okay. Whatever.
Oh,
right?
well.
So my daughter had a long list of churches and pieces of art that she wanted to see, primarily from the test as well as from her teacher. So the churches were just unbelievable. Like any Catholic church you've ever walked into in the United States, so, in many instances, there are several in Manhattan, for example, that are beautiful. They're large, they're gorgeous. There's lots of art. These churches we walked into were they made Manhattan look like Indianapolis. I mean, it was insane. There was just art everywhere, and it's like nobody even bats an eye at it. It's like, yeah, it's another church. I'm like, but how did that happen? How did that happen in 1100 AD?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. It's like the pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our time in Rome and Vatican City was truly outstanding, because you don't really have a sense for the scale of the environment and how moving it is, regardless of whether or not you're Catholic. And then all of the churches along the way that we visited were just outstanding overall works of art.
Wow. Greg, Rome is my favorite city that I've been in of all so far. I've only been to Rome and Venice, so I haven't been anywhere else, but Rome blows my mind. Just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I did not know, for example, that the Forum, which is effectively, downtown Rome during the Empire, I didn't know it was that big. I mean, it's enormous, and you're overlooking the Colosseum, which is freaking huge, right? And it's still, a lot of it is still standing. I mean, oh man, the coolest thing we did as a family, when we took the train south into Naples, we stopped in Pompeii, and we hired a private archaeologist to give us a tour of Pompeii.
Wow.
That was, and it was not terribly expensive, but it was worth every penny, and I would have paid that guy 4 times over. Pompeii is very large. There were people without a guide in Pompeii who were walking up to our archaeologist guide asking him how to get out because they were lost. Right? Pompeii is enormous, and
we don't want to be here until it goes off again.
Yep. And incredibly moving. You've seen probably pictures over the years of people who were frozen in time, and there are 3 examples of that in one section of Pompeii as you're finishing up your tour, and they're in glass cases, and you can look at them, and I had to walk away. It was too much. It was, like a teenager, a 30-year-old, and like a mom or something, and it was too much to think that they were frozen in time like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but hiring the archaeologist who lives in Naples, studied archaeology at university, and then makes a living by taking the train 20 minutes south every day to Pompeii and giving tours. Oh my God. I mean, every time I turned around, Ed, he was like, and the Latin root of this word would tell us, and that would be the start of his mini lesson for that section of Pompeii.
There you go.
What a great tour guide and archaeologist. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. But it's all credit to my wife. To be completely honest, until we landed, there were towns I didn't even know we were spending the night in. I was like, I don't know.
It's better that way. It's better that way.
I was like,
somebody's got to plan it.
Yeah. I worked last week. I don't know. What did you do?
Wow.
So great stuff. Cool. The New York Yankees hats aside.
Yeah. Well, it'll be all right.
And one really quick comment, Ed, I'd shared this with you earlier. I think I've had now 2 separate college professors, independent of each other, talk to me over the last couple of weeks, and the topic of not forced, the topic of accounting came up in both cases. And they both told me, in so many words, that when students come to them and say, I want to major in accounting, they say, no, you don't. And that leads me to believe that organizations like the AI CPA, just picking on them because we know them, right? They have a bit of work to do in the academic setting to turn the tide. Your conversation with Dr. Meyer today was awesome. She's very excited about the future of the profession, but that seems, at least based on a data point of 2, right, seems to be not coming through at the college level.
Yeah, they're trying to make inroads, and as she mentioned, she alluded to the numbers for the last year are better, but who knows if that's going to continue? It's not a trend until you get at least 3 years in a row, right? But we shall see.
Wow.
But yep.
Well, glad to be back. The two of you have a bonus episode to do.
Okay.
And I will. I'll see you again next week.
Catch up.
Okay, great.
All right.
Take care.
Yep.